Okay. Hi, Otaiba. Welcome to our
Hey,
show.
how are you guys?
You're fine. How are you?
Alive, alive. It's 27 degrees and sunny, so we are having a 1 day of summer in the UK. So might as well enjoy it.
Okay.
Might as well enjoy it.
So it's special day for you.
Yeah. Linen shirt. We don't often wear linen shirts in the UK. Let's put it this way.
Okay, I see. I see. I spent there 2 weeks this summer, and I need
Okay.
to buy another trousers because I can't believe I cannot wear my shorts there because it was so cold there. So
When I landed, it was 27, then 28, and then the next day it was 6 degrees and pissing down with rain.
yeah, I know.
And
Okay, so let's start with the first part of the show, and it's introduction. So
okay,
could you maybe tell us who is the Otaiba guy?
okay. A type of guy is a very old and tired
Oh
individual.
no.
Yeah. I had my 45th on Monday. Trust me, I'm feeling old. So, I'm a tester. I literally am from the day I left university. Um, I applied for jobs when I got out, and this company, a very large insurance company in the UK, hired me to do nothing but run manual test cases like a monkey. Like, here are test cases, run through them, run through them. There was no quality control. There was nothing. Just run test case, tick box, run test case, tick box. Um, Eventually, they kept me when the contract was over, and I decided that testing seemed to make sense. The only problem was that I'm not the personality type that sits down and does things in a logical fashion. I've got a field marshal personality, so I made a conquest of the organization. So by the time I ended up a program test manager a year and a half later, um, they told me to move to Bristol. Bristol is a city on the other end, the western end of the UK, and I thought that was too far and depressing. So I ended up working in Toronto. Um, Obviously, I did know that Toronto was much further away, but what the hell? So I spent a couple of years in Toronto and Vancouver working for telecoms. So your Vodafone and O2 billing solutions when GPRS, I've installed those, actually physically install them in the Czech Republic, in Germany, the UK, places like that. Um, and one day I electrocuted myself. Um, I didn't see that the legal intercept boxes had a electrical, do not touch sign. I obviously missed it, and I touched it, and I woke up on the floor with, you can see them, little burns down there in my hand. And I decided this was not the job for me. The job for me is in management. So I resigned on a piece of toilet paper. It was all I had because it's a secure room, so you can't go in with pen, paper, cameras. So I went to the bathroom, took a long couple of sheets of toilet roll, got a pen and signed my resignation on it, and took a picture on those old little
No, no,
T6090
no. I
phones.
can't believe this is
Yeah,
this.
took it,
No.
and did it through. Resigned, and I said that testing is the way to go in quality assurance. Now, it was I was at Centrica at the time. Now, Centrica is the new name for British Gas utilities. Um, Simple job, and I just focused on operational acceptance because I like the technical side of things. So, I love the pizzazz of having my fingerprint scanned and my eye scanned when I go into data centers and so forth. And that's where I learned the technical side of how physical kit and infrastructure is put together. And I have some wonderful stories of how things can go wrong in the worst possible way at the worst possible moment. Um, and after that, the Czechs made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. So DHL asked me to come in as a senior program test manager. A year later, I was running their global testing practice out of Prague.
You moved to the Prague on that time,
I
or
moved I moved to Prague, I moved to Prague for that role because my girlfriend at the time was Czech. So I wasn't going to go without a support mechanism. It was all there and so forth, right? So ended up there, and while I was there, after a year, they made an offer of going to. You can see a lot of my career choices are based on them sending me away from them. So they, they wanted to send me to Bonn, and I'm not. I didn't want to go to Bonn. Let's leave it at that.
do you speak German?
No, I don't even speak German, but they all speak English because DHL's corporate language is English. But the problem in Bonn Tower is you move more towards the Deutsche Bank, at that time the Deutsche Bank and Deutsche Post side of things. The further up you go, and I said, no, not interested. So then hired by a bunch of Americans called UST Global, and they were based out of LA, Aliso Viejo, and they gave me the central US and Europe as my areas to roam and wander and sales activities, because the reason you guys are probably talking to me is because I'm what you call a gamekeeper turned poacher. Half my life I've been the client, half my life I've been the supplier. And I learn new shit about what's going on and I take it across the other side and I flip between the two because then I know how to package something for the other side.
So on this time, on that time, you became a sales guy from the
Yes,
testing
that's
side.
when I became a sales guy because
Uh-huh.
my personality type leads me to, once I knew quality and testing inside out from my perspective,
Uh-huh.
I also realized that there was a disconnect between how business sees it. IT has always been subservient to business. But if you look at proper quality diagrams, quality and delivery are two separate streams of equal value and importance. So I have no hesitation in saying that my career was based on eating project managers for breakfast. Okay. And any project managers out there, I like my meat sautéed and medium rare. Um, so 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 once that was done, it was just traveling on airplanes, traveling on airplanes. I think at one point I had 3.5 million British Airways air miles. Um, in fact, you'll like this side story. Worst, and I mean the worst flight of my life was Prague, London, London, Nottingham, Nottingham, London, London, New York, New York, Dallas, Dallas, John Wayne. I arrived at John Wayne International and they asked, what the hell are you doing here? I said, annual appraisal, because I couldn't speak. And I did that exact same route in reverse. When I got to my place in Balbinova, I had no idea who I was, why I was there, what time breakfast was going to be served, and I was confused. And that's when I realized that, I may be getting too old for flying at the tender age of 27. No, 30, 32, sorry. After that, it all became contracting. I went and contracted for Spanish companies out of Madrid, out of London, Madrid. Spent a lot of time there with Everest, and floating around doing things that I'd liked to do because it became a certain point that I would be paid for fun. Because I think, as Marcel knows, I'm a people person. Eventually, ended up back in Prague after a hiatus because both the kids were born in the UK. Came back, did some work for them out there, Maverick Testing and Solutions, and they were an Indian-based software solution provider selling into. So I was doing the offshoring side of things, but I had no nearshore. And at this point, nearshore was getting important. Then I was with these guys at Decenifer for what, 4 or 5 months until
7.
the divorce came.
Actually,
Seven, seven.
I checked the
I'm
your LinkedIn profile.
until the divorce kicked in, and they said, no, 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 I need to figure this one out, spend some time away to sort my life out. And since then, it's been contracting because I have security clearance in 4 different countries, so I can do quality assurance and a form of delivery, but I can also speak the language to the suppliers from a sales perspective, what they're trying to achieve and do, and that's what I spend most of my time doing now.
So this was pretty deep dive.
Yeah.
Probably the best introduction ever in Make IT Fun. Definitely.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
felt
try to
like
put some.
we are interviewing you for some job position rather than.
Yeah.
Well, I did try and add some funny jokes. I'm going to give you more, but the reason I did it that way is to give you guys context, because some of the questions you'll ask me, the answers will be different, because my experience set is a little bit more global and a little bit more jaded.
Mhm.
So
So
you'll understand as you ask questions.
yeah, so I'll maybe add some questions to this to find
Sure.
out more. You didn't mention any hobbies or any other interest than your job. So what are your
I
hobbies?
have a selection of tequilas over there,
Tequilas, okay.
and I've got a selection of whiskeys over there.
And
Okay.
are you collecting them only, or are you also testing them?
I am drinking every single one of them. There is no point collecting something expensive unless you're willing to use it. Okay.
Okay, I see. Okay, then I have another question, and that's about the sports. Do you have
mhm.
any favorite sport?
Snowboarding. And I'll tell you what,
Snowboarding.
snowboarding. You want the funny story behind that? I joined it's called skiing and snowing at a very late age. I was about 29, and I remember calling an instructor in Innsbruck. Come up, and he goes, "Mr. Sheikh, how will I find you?" And I'm going, "I'm the only brown man on the entire mountain." So he got up and he goes, "You're Otaiba." I said, "Yes, I am." And then I realized that skiing wasn't for me. Snowboarding works a little bit better.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when my feet are locked, they're not going to go anywhere because I'm a horrible dance partner. So I can just go downhill. And I'm like 90 kilos. My momentum takes me everywhere.
Okay, I see. So the snowboarding is the sport, because I never heard about any sport stories from you.
Yeah, no. But then again, you've got a oyster and caviar and everything else. It's got to go somewhere. So you've got to burn off somewhere as well in the process. And those whiskeys aren't going to consume themselves.
Okay, I see. So that's interesting. So maybe we could now move on to the next part, which is hot seat questions.
Okay.
Yeah, we are continuing with the interview. You did, the whole highlight of your career, and now it's our time, to ask really, how to say, relevant question. And some are relevant, some we will see your reaction, and we will start with the first one, and it is that you need to choose Svichkova or fish and chips.
Svichkova.
Really? Okay.
But with the jam on the side. If there's no little pot of jam on the side, then the deal is over. I'm going back to fish and chips.
Okay. Wine or beer?
Wine.
Okay. Prague or London?
Ooh. Can I skip that question completely?
No. This is why it's a hot seat question. You need to choose one.
Okay. I'll answer the question if I'm allowed at some point later on to explain why.
No, why? You need to choose one. This is why a hot seat question.
London.
Okay.
London.
Oh.
Okay. We will cut this part and we will promote via this part. Yeah, definitely.
If I procrastinate and make noises, you are going to do little trims, right?
Okay. Which is the best London football club?
Everton. I should say Crystal Palace because they're just literally like 2 minutes down there. No, let's stick with Crystal Palace in case anybody hears this. I don't want to get assaulted. I don't want to get assaulted in public.
Okay, then maybe one more relevant. What is the testing pyramid?
Don't know. No longer care.
Okay. The best whiskey.
Glenfiddich 25.
Oh, okay. Good one.
I don't like the PT ones because they're too peaty and you can't drink them extended periods. But a good whiskey should always be able to old enough to order its own whiskey.
Yeah. Okay. Have you ever written any test case?
Yes, hundreds, thousands. I told you, when I started working at 21, I was doing manual test cases.
Okay, but it's a long time, right?
It's a long time ago.
Okay.
I think the closest I get to that level now is when I would review and amend some scenarios for somebody. But that's
okay. What surprised you most when you first time visit the Czech Republic?
Beer is what price? When I first arrived, a Pilsner was what, 26, 27 crowns? And people were telling me it was even cheaper a few years before that. Okay. Now I walked into my pub in Hachanska and suddenly I noticed it was like 63, 64. That was the first thing I noticed.
Still okay now.
You guys weren't joking that beer at the time was cheaper than water. That was not false advertising.
And I have last one, I guess our favorite. What is more sellable than testing?
Tell us what first pop up.
The promise of getting the promise of more testing.
Okay, this is a more philosophical.
But it is an answer. It is an answer. Yeah, and I'll explain why later on if you ask.
Okay. Because we had like very good discussion with our one guest. It's not still public. I have that soon, and we discussed, and he tell us that the condoms are more sellable or better
Well,
sellable
see,
than testing. That's weird.
I was going to say the oldest profession in the world, but I decided that may not be appropriate depending on who watches this, and I don't want you to be demonetized in any way or form.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, that's it from the hot seat, and now we would like to move on to the main part. And I see that Marcel is fully ready.
Yeah.
Okay, this should be interesting.
Talking about the sales.
Marcel, be gentle, please.
Okay, I'll be.
No, I'm not really sure that Marcel know how to do it.
Let's
Leave
see.
that one there.
So, talking about the sales, we would like to talk
Mhm,
about sales, selling, testing, and maybe
mhm,
promoting it in general.
mhm. Okay.
So, maybe I would start with the question how it worked when you first start selling. Because you said you was doing some
Yeah.
testing, and what happened,
Yeah.
how it happened, and what was the first impressions or feelings from that
So
first
so in
situation?
those days, even for one of the largest financial insurance companies in Europe, right? And they're one of their new blown applications. If we look back now, their testing was done by a bunch of cowboys. I mean, literally, it was ill-disciplined. It was not as formal as it should be. They had no concept of test data. They had no concept of repeatability. And it was a case of here's a script, see what happens, and just go with the flow. Even their tests at the time were ad hoc more than anything else. And that was repeated amongst many clients. Remember, this is going to be 2000, 2001 when I first started. There was no discipline. There was no formality. You had project managers who were responsible for the budgets and costs of a project and who had a desire to get it out the door, suddenly responsible for the quality of getting it out the door. But for them, their bonuses and their paychecks are going to come in getting it out the door, not on the level of quality associated with the application.
Mhm.
That all changed about, it took 6-7 years before that changed in 2008. Because in 2008, when the financial crash took place, my world changed. Because suddenly, people didn't have the money anymore. So, we have these generic conversations about, fix a defect early on, do the testing up front. And, that was all a theoretical conversation when there's money to be thrown around. Nobody
Mhm.
cares. It's an irrelevant conversation. But suddenly, when there was no money to be thrown around, people saying, okay, how do we reduce cost? Well, guys, maybe if you give me an extra 10% budget in testing quality assurance, I can try and reduce that end cost for you. And that's when the conversation began to take place. And then
So
that's
you
when I
was
started educating
selling
the business.
over promising to save some budgets
Yes,
or
you had to.
costs.
It was the only argument that took place. I'll give you a story about, hold on, it's 2024, so my non-disclosure with Walmart is over. So I'll give you a Walmart story from about the same period of time. When I was there, I didn't understand how to put across testing to them. It just didn't click because most of them had come up through the shop floor, through the sales floor. They'd work their way up that process, and it was Bentonville, Arkansas. Sorry to anybody from Arkansas who's listening to this. Great town, great city. Suddenly, you had to change the way you communicate. So I don't know if you know Walmart and Costco's model. It's high volume, low margin,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's how they sell. So basically, I started selling test cases as individual pieces, high volume, low margin. The moment you changed your language to what they understood and what they could equate to, that's when they started buying and purchasing from us. So that's also about the time I realized that, hold on, whatever we do, we have to try and cater our service provision or what I'm trying to sell into the language of the organization, whatever vertical it is, as
Mm-hmm.
well as who the target audience is.
And who was your
And
target audience on their
at
side?
Walmart, it was IT services. Sorry, go back. What was the full question,
Yeah,
Marcel?
the question was who is on the other side? You are
Yeah,
offering your services when you are selling. Is it
Mm.
someone from business? It's high level manager, or it's someone who
for
understands the
me,
test? Or
for me, success is when you get to the business. Because even to this day, most IT organizations are subservient to business.
Mhm.
Because people in business, and once again, anybody listening, sorry, people in business have their own ego and self-importance. Okay. My joke is that's why user acceptance is always at the end, because it gives the business the final say, because it
Mhm.
gives them a feeling of importance. Now, there are other reasons why it's there, but you get the idea. So if you can get to the business, it's fantastic. If you get to the senior manager in IT or the head of services in IT, all they're going to do is pick up the phone and talk to somebody in business. What do you think? If I have any gift, and my gift is the ability to speak, I'm that kind of personality type. So I would prefer to speak to the business, make my case, explain what I'm trying to do, explain the benefits to myself, rather than an introverted personality type doing that, maybe missing a context. And I also can't be, I don't know what the phrase in Czech is, but to be browbeaten. Somebody who's senior to you suddenly tells you to shut up and care. I don't do that. I just keep on talking, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and now that I've been in the business side long enough, I kind
Uh-huh.
of know the tricks. I know what to say to package it.
Uh-huh. But selling per test case sounds strange to me, because this is something like it's very transactional, like
It
low
used to be
level.
it used to be transactional. I mean, nowadays we prefer an outcome-based service, or we provide you a team, or we do a delivery service for you, or there there are many ways of doing it. But what you're ultimately doing is you're trying to cater your service provision for what that client's appetite to understand and absorb is. There's no
Okay.
point having a huge conversation about I can give you an outcome-based service, I can have an offshore delivery team, if they've never done offshore and they're insecure about it, and if they've got no idea what a test case is because they're a young startup trying to start a business. So you have to change and cater. Could you imagine? There was a client recently where I'm still trying to sell individual test cases on a time material basis. Why? Because that's all they understand. So the value that you suddenly add is minimal.
Okay, I see. So you start with some history or how it
Mhm.
developed over
Hmm.
the years. Is there any trend? Like, is it like it was easy to sell via per test case in past, and now it's based on something else, or maybe
Yeah, the
selling
primary drive,
packaging
the
into AI box
so
with?
Yeah.
I will come to AI and what I have seen of the future and what's coming up in a bit, right? But you want the journey first. Until so we in the West, now remember I say this from a travel perspective. When we in the West always led on the maturity and the professionalism side of quality assurance and testing, right? Because fundamentally we're inclined to we have a limited number of resources. We need to get it right first time, every time. So we would
Mm.
deliver and do. It's when the offshore competition began, where suddenly you could have 3 or 4 bodies at the same price. Your level of quality and output dropped, but we were competing with people on the bottom line. Remember, cost became an important imperative.
Mm.
So quality in itself on a per user basis diminished, but they could throw the numbers in to bring it back up again. The problem with that now is that today testing is a commodity. And I don't care what anybody says. Anybody provides testing services, unless there's a great value add proposition, is fundamentally selling apples. Your apples might be shinier, bigger, juicier. Every person who sells core testing services is selling the same thing that somebody else can also sell better. So my goal in life then became, I want to sell you an apple pie in a country where there are no apples.
Mhm.
Okay? Um, being of Pakistani origin, that can mean lots of different things. I assure you, I'm not going to kill anybody in the process.
Would that work?
Shh. Okay. So now it's a case of we always discussed. I think, Marcel, I once had a conversation with you that what is the value proposition that we bring to somebody? Why
Mhm.
would they choose us? Okay. A lot of us don't like to reduce our prices and say, oh, it's a cost thing. They don't want the cheapest. Fundamentally, 9 times out of 10, really, they actually do want the lowest. And, I mean, even the space shuttle is built on the guys who bid the lowest number for the lowest price per cost. Cost is important. We like to sometimes kid ourselves that it isn't. But if you don't want to move away from cost, then your value proposition, the extra oomph and magic you bring to the table, has to be phenomenal. And not a lot of organizations have figured that out.
Okay.
Um,
So what would be your advice in this area? What it could be? Or
Once again, my people in my profession are going to hate what I'm going to say. is to slowly and surely start embracing new technology and removing the amount of people in the organization. The value they bring is their intelligence and expertise. They should not be doing low-end menial tasks. Their value is at the top, doing review and thinking about the process. So I'll give you a real-life example. Have real juniors straight out of university, let them write test cases for you. My senior testers in one of the projects, all they're looking at is, hold on, what does the user see through this? What is the experience the user will feel? It's a combination of testing, quality assurance, business analysts, and end users. And they look at the requirements from a end-to-end top perspective holistically. Like, okay, we've got this experience. We can test this route. We can do that. We can look at the quality, or for example, a user workflow. What is the workflow from start to finish? Get it inside your head. Then look at the permutations. And then say to the guys, do. Recently, with one of our customers who is extremely far ahead of anything I've ever seen in my life, they're using AI to take on board project initiation documents and requirement documents. And then they're building test scenarios and test categories out of them. And then, because it's easy, remember all you're doing is you're pulling out, this has to be tested, very simple stuff. And then you're saying, okay, how would you test it? Well, the system waits until somebody draws a high-level design document or a design of any type, put it in, they go, okay. And suddenly, 80% accurate written manual test cases are coming out of the system. That's a lifesaver. Now, what the value you've just provided your end customer is time and cost. Quality is guaranteed to a certain level.
Okay, but this is interesting. So you would just push up the expertise you are delivering, or that the value is via expertise, whether you are leveraging it by humans or machines or AI or whatever you'll call it. But how then you can differentiate on price? Because the price, if the market is used to some pricing, so if they are able to measure by hours and the rate per hour, then it's very difficult to say, okay, but I'm different. I will deliver something completely else, and it'll cost you X, Y, Z. I don't know how much money.
So there are two answers to this, because there are two scenarios in the sentence you say. Let me do the easy one first, right? And I'm going to ask you guys a question as well. When is the last time you incentivized your client?
What do you mean by that?
In that you told the client to buckle up, behave themselves, and do things in a certain way, and gave them a benefit for doing so. I did it yesterday. Okay? You don't, do you? It's not something that clicks with you.
What's the point behind it?
I'll tell you why. So you asked why they would buy. So the easy portion is when you incentivize your client, you say, listen, guys, once we work with you for like 3 or 4 years, let's say a 3-year contract, we will reduce the cost of delivering the same service to you over a 3-year period and reducing it if you follow these rules and requirements with us. Because in year 1, you build up your processes, you build up your collateral, you build up your material. Most companies would go, in year 2, we will charge you the same. Year 3, we will charge you the same. I said, no. If you follow these rules and do what I tell you to do, year 2, I'll charge you 15% less. Year 3, I'll cut that by another 10%. I make them do work. Now, what happens as part of that process is that now they've got skin in the game. They're incentivized to keep working with me because, one, they're getting cost reductions, but I've made them do work to adapt to my business requirements and business needs, the way I want to do things. So now it's a mutual relationship where there's a higher cost for separating the businesses and not renewing contracts. And that's the easy answer from my perspective.
But natural behavior of any sales guys, but not only, is that you are just trying to keep your accounts or customers to grow and get more money out of them, not reduce it, no?
But there's a difference in this. Remember that I'm not a pure sales guy. I'm a guy who's done the testing. I've done the test automation, the test scripting, the manual test cases, the sitting at night while we're doing a deployment and pulling cables out for ad hoc testing and servers. So from my perspective, I understand what every single tester and every single testman goes through. So what I would normally do is when I do sell a service, I'm actually there until it becomes a BAU activity. Because I don't like the idea of what we call bait and switch. Once again, not sure what the Czech term is. That you show something nice and shiny like me, and suddenly when the project's signed, I vanish. My view is I stay there for a while to do that initial delivery to prove that we're not running away anywhere.
And do you
Yep.
see, maybe you said that, do you have the hands-on practice, with the testing, and do you see that this is like benefit for you, that you as
Yes.
seller,
Oh God, yes.
and you have like hands-on? Because I know many, people who are like selling testing, and they don't know what is maybe UAT, but then send you somebody who is technical. That what are maybe the main benefit that you are selling testing and your hands-on practice, that how you use it.
How you use it. So I'll answer that question. Because I've done it and I understand the concept, it's more difficult for people to throw the wool over my eyes. I don't get confused by terms when it comes to testing and services. I also know the risks and issues that are concerned with it. So when I go that sell process, now let's say there are two scenarios, and I know I haven't finished the full answer for Marcel. So Marcel, I'll come back to you, but I'm just going to go down this route. Don't worry, I'm not avoiding the answer. I should have avoided the answer. Anyway, okay. So you have this scenario where you have people who have to deliver. Now imagine I am the client and I'm going through a supplier, right? There is no way a person supplying testing will be able to out-talk me or to hoodwink me on the service they try to provide. I'm their worst nightmare because I will drill down into certain things just to see if they know what they're trying to answer and do. If I am the supplier, as long as it's an industry that I've worked in, I've worked in retail, telecom, communication, military, the works. I kind of know how the business works. So from my perspective in that scenario, I'm packaging and looking at the product to a way, will you understand what I'm trying to do? Or I change the language and break it down. And then I found out that I end up being a translation layer between the end customer and my guys internally, and vice versa. So for me, if I had to put down one of the biggest benefits of my career was starting off at the bottom end of testing, doing that work and working my way up through the chain until a point I realized, screw this, I can do this better. And then just going off on a limb and trying it. But without that core foundation of experience, I'm just a bag of hot air. Now, some people would say I'm a bag of hot air anyway, but at least I'm trying to provide context in this scenario.
So going back to my question.
Yes, there we go.
Sorry, Marcel.
So you are
Marcel,
trying
you'll have to
sell,
repeat the question.
you are trying to sell it differently because you said the testing is commoditized, or how that was the statement. Then and people are used to buy the services based on what's the cost per day or per hour. So how
Okay,
you repackage that, or how?
No, actually, no. They want to buy it by cost per day per hour. Let's give them a different solution, right? Let's say that giving us time and effort on your end, giving us your subject matter experts and whatever, we will design a test pack for this area which will cover everything functionally. And there's a penalty on us if it doesn't. So suddenly they know that they can walk off and we give them discrete components of test and activity and work. You just have to change the model. Now, I need to be really polite in how I say this, so you may want to cut this out at some point. We are not in a position here to throw bodies at a solution. Bodies is not an intelligent, future-proof way of delivering quality to the customer, because that means high turnaround, an attrition rate you've got to deal with, poor knowledge management, pure execution, and to some extent, when you go offshore, layers and layers of nepotism. Okay, this guy got promoted not because he is really good at his job, but because he's my uncle. We see it all the time. Somebody's nodding their head, so he agrees. Okay, so here,
Still, I'm not sure whether this would work because at least in the world I live in, there is structure. There are some
of course, the
costs. You
structure.
go for some RFP or for some. You compete with your competitors, and they are comparing your price with the other offers.
Yeah. So what do you offer on top of that price? So, for example, I have a facility with one of my runs where I can throw in the test automation scripts free of charge, right? Completely free of charge, and it costs me nothing. Suddenly, I'm saying I'll do the execution for you, I'll do the planning for you. Whatever happens in UAT, once those use cases are approved, give me 3 days, 4 days, I will make them your entire automation regression pack, free of charge. Here you go. Okay, and you know what? I'll throw in a year of maintenance as well. But you want that year of maintenance? I want the next year. I want the next year of development for your testing development for you guys as well. Now,
I'll keep
you
my
and you and I,
skepticism.
yeah,
I'll keep my skepticism, and I'll ask once more, because
okay.
what you said. Okay, this is brilliant. Something for free is coming, and it's automation, even better.
Hmm?
But I cannot fit it into the regular process. If we count maybe I could imagine counting test cases and maybe pricing test cases or others. But if you are giving me something extra, I'm not asking for, and all the other guys are compliant with what I need to deliver to my
So this is
organization.
going. So once again, I'm going to be very polite in how I respond to this. Most of the business you look for and you hunt for is in a different part of Europe, where there is a different mindset in how
Mm-hmm.
they purchase and do things. I believe, and this is a bugbear, is that some regions of Europe are less flexible in their thinking and thought process because they don't want to raise their. Okay, we might as well get geopolitical here.
I'm not
There
sure
are,
whether it's about the regions. It might be, but it's also about the type of companies. If you are in a
so
big corporation with a very strict policy around purchasing and procurement, then this might be challenging because there are some
no, you see,
specific technical
I
criteria and so on.
on this one, Marcel, I'd have to disagree with you. Today's Friday. Tuesday, I was at a place whose name you know. It's a bank with four-letter abbreviation in its name, right?
Super
Okay,
secret. Super secret.
top secret,
Yeah,
top
yeah,
secret.
yeah.
No NDA signed, but I'm just being careful, right? But if you don't know who it is, somebody should just go outside and shoot themselves. You're right. They are the kind of organization which has its vendor management, its procurement process, and it's completely rock solid. It's got to be done in a certain way.
Mhm.
Until you walk in there and explain the benefits to the business. Do you know who my biggest sponsors there were after the first two meetings? The actual project delivery team were arguing with vendor management and arguing with procurement that this is what we have to go for because in the long term it helps us.
Mhm.
Yes, there was money conversations. There was conversations about, oh my God, it's got to be done this way. But no, I had my internal stakeholders now and sponsors doing the fighting for me. It's a mindset change. And remember, any process that cannot accept a change or a deviation is fundamentally broken in the first place. And I remind people this all the time. If your process doesn't allow for change or something new or something more cost effective, beneficial to you, well, your process is broken. Let's just ignore it.
Okay.
You
Okay.
see, I
So
told you my
Mhm.
view is slightly more different.
No, definitely different.
we are fighting hard. So let's move on to the different topic. I don't know whether I could see on our script preparation on our prepared script that there is one more question which might be related, and that's what's the difference between selling testing in UK or anywhere else and in Czech Republic, if you could compare.
Mhm.
So can I expand that question?
Yeah,
Can I
make it
include the
better.
US?
Yeah.
Can I include the US and the Far East?
You can. US,
So,
UK, and then
yeah,
Czech Republic. Yeah.
yeah. So rather than just have these two regions, let's go across the world.
Okay.
All right. US depends which retail sector. If it is customer facing, i.e., general public, they take testing far more seriously.
Really.
Far more seriously, because because remember, in the Czech Republic, if let's go New Yorker, let's use them as an example. If New Yorker doesn't have a 6% increase in market share every year, people consider them a failure. In the US, if a retail chain has 1.5 to 2% growth, well done, boys, you've done well, because it's a much more competitive, attritive market.
Mm-hmm.
So word of mouth and people. I remember when I was at Boeing. Boeing spends 27,000 man hours. You wouldn't believe it with what they're doing in the news these days, but 27,000 man hours on doing an inspection of a document on a bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's far more in depth and it's a much more mature service. But from a sales perspective, it is also much quicker turnaround from once the offer and proposition has been made. They don't waste time going through repetitive circles.
Mm-hmm.
Canada is a bit more like the Europe because it's where it's trying to look towards. It kind of avoids its neighbor to the south. So let's put them into the UK, Icelandic, German, French model,
Mm-hmm.
and no, not the Spanish model. That's a different model completely. Here, it's a case of What are you doing? What are the time frames? And they procrastinate. For example, so a typical sales cycle here can be 6-7 months. In the US, might be a month, month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But
Interesting.
because the testing is now, I said commodity, they know what they're doing, and people have grown up with testing services for the last 20, 30 years now in the UK. Most people understand. I have people coming out of university in the UK who have a quality part of their course, even if it's on IT, how to get things right, how to do things right. Because being right makes your life easier, because inherently we want to be lazy, and therefore we want things to work perfectly so we can go do something else. Human nature.
Mm-hmm.
The Germans, everything has to be done, cross T's, dot I's. I mean, I know it's a social stereotype, but they are process driven. They want their process fulfilled. They want things done in a certain way. That's cool. I remember the first time Phil and I went to Germany on a meeting. It was a culture shock for me because I like to think big. And they were like, no, this. And I was completely confused.
Uh-huh.
When you get to the Czech Republic, I haven't decided. Some organizations, like Komerční banka, right? They are part of it's called SocGen, Society Generale.
Mm-hmm.
So they've inherited a lot of the quality practices from their parent organizations. Same with Česká spořitelna and the banks. You know, the parent organization has processes. The processes filter down, and they try and stick to them. Cool with that. But a lot of small organizations, tier 2, tier 3, they don't have quality and testing initiatives, or they will try and do it on the easy and the slight. That's not because they're lazy. It's not because they don't know. It's because market maturity hasn't arrived to them. And high-end testing is still something that is possibly, from a price perspective, out of their reach.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's a commodity here where I am right now, but it's not a full commodity over there right now. It's a specialized service.
And do you think these
Testing,
smaller companies are different in Western Europe than in compared to Czech Republic? Or
I think they are. I was talking to colleagues when I was getting drunk on my birthday. I was discussing some colleagues who run smaller businesses, and their view was that they could literally call recruitment agencies who would provide them testers, right? Students or whatever, or to a certain level. This guy's got his ISTQB foundation. You can have 4 of them. Suddenly, when you go to normal recruiters, they're just writing you testers on a contractual ad hoc basis. You see what I mean? It's become so commoditized. It's like you can pick it up at a supermarket. You can pick it up in a supermarket. Okay. Unfortunately, what we know is that the trends from the West go towards the East over time. And this situation gets even worse when you get to Turkey and the Middle East and whatever. It gets worse. It picks up again as you get towards Malaysia and places like that in Australia, because the quality level picks up again. But you've got this dip like that. But the dip is shifting. The dip is shifting now towards the East. Just like the EU as a political entity intended it to.
Okay, last question, and then we might close this one. What is your most favorite activity in sales or selling testing?
Other than signing the contract, right?
I don't believe that this is reviewing the contract now.
No. The best. Okay, so you're going to hear a little secret here. Marcel, I think, probably knows this, but you know that I am a very sociable, gregarious person, and I'm always with the customer having a drink and this and that, whatever. I think the most satisfying thing is when you're 3 or 4 drinks down, and the customer says, "Oh yeah, the project's yours. Let's just enjoy ourselves." So, for me, knowing over a social meal that the contract is done, it's dusted, and now this is not an obligation. I can now enjoy myself and have a drink or eat something. It's knowledge that what you have done has worked. The moment you get that, it's done, it's yours. That means you've convinced them, you've proven it, and they're ready to invest with the input skin in the game.
Okay, so this is the feel of success.
Just that moment.
Okay.
It's like a drug, boys and girls. It's like a drug.
So,
not to be found at your local dealer around the corner.
But maybe I have final question now.
Really,
Sure,
I thought I will wrapping it up.
You said that you had final, but now I have in my mind one question: that where maybe you see the future of the testing, because very often here in Central Europe there are some consideration that the shift left, etc. That we have AI and the developers can do everything and we don't need such of testers. we see different, what you mentioned, also the situation in US, that where you see the future of the testing in, I don't know, next, not
the
like for the 20 years, but maybe for the next 5 years.
The future will have to be segmentized marketing. The question you've asked me tells me the perspective you have on testing. Okay. And I think that your basis for the question is wrong. Right? Okay. Let me explain why. You want to know where the future of test will go. Mine is actually no. What is the future of the economy in the place that you want to sell testing? Because if we have a crash, you'll have smaller companies and organizations, and how you package your test services will change. So suddenly one day you might find out that you have market segmentation across the board. The future for us is to be able to cater for each of those market segments in a way that that client, that individual tier or group understands what we're trying to do. A guy in a smaller tier 3 is not looking for a Rolls Royce or a BMW. He would be happy with, I don't know, a 40-year-old Trabant coming through, right, that actually works and gets him there. That could be everything he needs, and if you provide that, awesome, he'll pay you for it. A bank might want a fleet of Rolls Royces. Deal with that. So it's to be able to understand what our market segment is and split our service provisions into those segments. We actually have to do the thing we're not used to doing. We talk about bringing everything together under one big roof and sing Kumbaya and Hallelujah. I'm saying that model's over because market disparity, how markets and businesses. So as more industry, as the economy grows, you have more small organizations, mid organizations. We need to figure out how to cater for all of them and not look disrespectfully at the small buyer. The small buyer's needs to him are just as important to him as a big buyer's needs are to them. And one day your small buyer will become a big buyer if they're successful. So if you're part of that journey from day one, you have their loyalty and they will always choose you first.
Okay, with that said, we are done.
I guess we are really done.
It was pretty interesting view because we are discussing a lot of like tooling stuff, processes, and this is slightly philosophical and slightly, I don't know, maybe marketing and sales type of view about the segment.
It's really good. It's a completely different view.
Yeah.
You see, there's nothing wrong with pushing. We have to be humble. We have to be self-reflective. We want to think that what we do is amazing. It's amazing. It's cutting edge. But then again, there are also other people who are doing amazing things that are cutting edge. So it always becomes a case of how we differentiate ourselves.
Okay.
No customer is a bad customer as long as they're willing to sign the contract, fulfill our prerequisites and requirements, and allow us to do the work.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it with us as we enjoyed it with you.
I hope the questions and answers didn't scare you guys off. I'll find it if Marcel ever talks to me again.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for coming. And
my pleasure, guys. I will speak.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.